Welcome everyone to another Buzz Slayers interview. Today we are here with Joe Gills of AKA Gillsaw. And before we get into everything question-wise, I want to thank you for doing this. Number one, I'm obviously a fan of the stuff that you do. You have a lot going on. You drop a lot of music, but you also what I've realized is, especially with Beautiful People, is I realized that you drop a lot of music, but it's all backed up. Like, you take a lot of time creating it, and you have like a formula to what you're doing. So I've realized over time working with you that everything you're doing musically is like part of like a bigger picture, and is part of like a formula and kind of almost like a mission statement that you're doing.
That's right.
Yeah. And so just so everyone gets caught up, I've first caught on to your stuff from Fogwatch, the EP, heavily industrial influenced, obviously. But there's elements of all kinds of, like, post-punk, cold wave, metal, there's all kinds of influences. And then of course you covered Beautiful People, originally by Marilyn Manson, of course, and you did it. What got me with that one is that you stuck to your guns with how you stuck to the Gillsaw sound. Yeah. It's experimental, a little bit experimental.
For sure.
And that's one of my favorite things about it. When you release something new, it's kind of like, all right, I don't know what it's going to exactly be like. You know what I mean? But I kind of, if you're familiar with the Gillsaw project, then you kind of know some of the staples, but it's going to be cool. It's like when you said, oh, we're doing a Beautiful People cover. No way. I was like, that's ballsy too. I mean, that's not an easy thing to cover. And when I heard it, I was like, dude, you pieced together, like, it was very pieced together. You know what I mean? It was like you took time with all the little elements, and you stuck true to the original to a heavy extent. I did. But you also heavy-handedly did the Gillsaw thing with it. Right. So one of my first questions that I have to ask you is, in terms of, so right now we're in your space here.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's got loads of, it's just dripping with personality back there, dude.
Yeah, this is my Gillsaw refuge right here.
I love it. This is where you record everything, or?
So I have two studios. This is my home studio. This is the one that I spend the bulk of my time, because this is where my computer stations are and all that. And I've got some musical elements here. I've got my electronic drum kit back there, and then I've got some like random acoustic drum shit that I've picked up. Like,
I see some bongos.
That's like a Native American drum, right? Like, just stuff to play around with, right?
Yeah.
And so I do some recording here. I do most of the vocal recording in this location. But then I also have an acoustic studio where I have like my big acoustic DW kit and a digital mixer and all that stuff there. So I'll do some recording in that studio as well. And so really the way that I approach that is I'm not dogmatic about it. It's more of like, hey, here's the sound that I'm going for from the drummer vocally or whatever the case may be, and it's, where can I get the best sound match? Is it sitting at that E kit there? Is it going into my acoustic studio and miking up a kit there? Is it banging on some bongos? Like, what is that? Or do I just want to plug it into like a Easy Drummer 3 type of deal, right?
Right.
And so really, because to me, it's about the song. It's not about like the ego of a musician, where it's like, I've got to be playing my DW kit and whatever else, right? Everything else is, no, man, it's for the song. Where can I get the right sound for the song?
Yeah. So obviously, you were a drummer first, originally, played in different bands and stuff like that before you broke out and started doing the Gillsaw thing on your own. That's just for everyone that's going to be watching this, in terms of knowing more about who you are and where you come from. you're a drummer first, and that's why you kind of are like all the statements you just said were very drum focused, and so people are like, wait, everything, my D-Dub, my kits, the live kits here, the electronic drum. So you're a drummer first, and so that brings me to I'm gonna branch off. If I get annoying, just stop me.
Go.
I love it. I really like to dig into certain things, especially when it's like a project like this. So you're a drummer first. So when you say you have your electronic drum kit there where you are in your little one, and then you have the acoustic one. So when you're putting together a track, let's say Thankful or something like that, like are you starting with like, how does that come to fruition? You start with the drums and then you map it out, and if that's the case, do you map out the song in your head and then play the drums to what's mapped out in your head?
Great question. So let's see, I'm pretty sure all of the Fogwatch songs and most of the songs on the new EP that's forthcoming started with drums. And what ends up happening is I go into my studio and I just start riffing on the drum kit. I'll press record on my computer and on my digital recorder and just play through some patterns. And I'm like, oh, this is a really interesting pattern. And then I'll just like noodle on it and like, okay, how can I refine this? Oh, this is getting really interesting now.
Yeah.
And I try to view it as what I try to do with the drums is, somebody told me once, they're like, dude, you're like a guitarist with the drums, right? Like I try to pull together those type of sound elements like you would find versus just the rhythm. And so
you're riffing. It's riffs. That's why that's why your friend or whoever you're like a guitarist on the drums. He's right, because he or she is right, because it's like you're doing riffs on the drums to invent the songs.
That's exactly what it is. And so I have files, like all musicians, like of like endless files of like shit that I noodled on, whatever else. Yeah. And so I'll just find stuff in there like, this one is really interesting, and I want to tease it out. Mm. And so then I just start building from that. I generally do start with the drums though. And then, sometimes I'll be like, oh, okay, for this, there's a different element that I would want to put into here. Do I have anything that I've experimented that's a little softer, a little spacey or whatever, right? And if not, then that's why I'll go sit at my kit and noodle around with something there. Yeah. I'm not very good at just sitting down and programming drums. Like to me, it's got to happen on the kit. Or
because you're a drummer.
That's right. It's got to be like, that's where it flows.
Yeah.
And then I can take that and, I can throw a MIDI output from EQ, whatever else, and do it that way.
But they're still played live is the point.
That's exactly right.
Even if you say like Easy Drummer 3, you're the drummer to a sense that even if you had like a keyboard MIDI trigger and you were going to play the drums that way, it still is live playing drums. Right. It's not, but that's different than being programmed and looping things in. And that's because you're a drummer. If I was going to write songs like that, I would have to, I probably couldn't even program drums. I'd probably have to find loops that were already fucking done, But I find that so interesting that how it starts with the drums, and so it never starts with like a synth riff or a guitar riff. So it grows from the drum. I find that so interesting. That's what I was most curious about, because I knew you were a drummer to start with, and I was most curious to see like where songs start and where they grow from, and then.
Let me tease on that just one more. Yeah, I want to add to that. So the reason Gillsaw started was I had taken those different drum riffs that I had come up with, and I had reached out some other musicians in the area, guitars, to say, hey, can we play around with these? Like, is there some things that you can think of to throw on top of these to turn this into something? And they struggled, right? There was some stuff that got pulled together where I was like, damn, that sounds really good. But was like, in their world, everything has to start from, the guitars. Yeah. And then like, the drums are what you plug in at the last moment, right? To support the song that they've already built. And so I was finding a hard time finding artists who could really fit that vision. And so then that's when I was like, solo project.
I'm gonna do it all myself.
I'm gonna do it all myself. And so so anyway, so there you go.
No, that makes sense too. Yeah, that was gonna be another thing. I was actually gonna ask if you actually have done a lot of collaborating with other people in the Gillsaw project.
Yeah, so in the Gillsaw projects, some of the elements that turned into songs were they were guitar riffs that I worked on with other people, right?
Mhm.
So so there is some of those elements in the Gillsaw songs. I do have a collab that we'll want to touch on at some point.
The new one coming up?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
it's badass. And so that was a lot of fun as well. And so, but I just find that for Gillsaw, it's just I find that going totally solo is a better approach because I'm not bound in my creativity. I can do whatever I want. And if you'll notice in the Gillsaw songs, the other elements, I view every instrument as just a sound effect. And so to me, it's not, I'm not a guitarist, so I don't need a guitar start to finish and hearing wanky chords throughout. I'm not. Same with the bass. It's like, hey, for this part of the song, there should be no guitar, no bass. It should just be, strange vocal elements and maybe a
raw synth or something.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's right. Where it's like, and so I'm not bound by the egos of other, and that, I don't mean that in a derogatory way.
I know
people are like, oh, I want my signature throughout the song versus like, for this, we're going to just compartmentalize a little bit of guitar here and there and call it good.
Yeah. Yeah, for you, it's just you have your process, I think, and part of your process, working alone, doing your thing is part of your process. Do you ever, doing your thing alone, that's like a big part of your process. With the collaboration that you're doing, we'll touch on this a little bit more later, but I just want to know, did it? I'm not sure how or what was collaborated on in terms of the track itself because I haven't heard that one yet. But
dude, I can't wait to release.
So did it open up a different area of your creativity?
Yeah, for sure. So it's with this a band called Decay, and they're out of Baltimore. And Dan from Decay and I have become friends, online friends, right? And I've been chatting with him for some time, like, hey, we should do a collaboration at some point. And he threw over a file to me. He was like, hey, here's a song that I've been kind of like noodling on, and I was like, dude, can I take it and kind of throw some shit at it? And he was like,
you destroyed it. Yeah.
So I was like, all right. So I went through and I threw like a bunch of sound effects at the low end of it to really beef out that, like, of course I'm coming from the drums at the start. And then I threw some more drum elements in it, and I just like, and then I sent it back to him and he's like, this is fantastic. And so he took it to his band. They threw some additional guitars and bass on it. And then he and I split the vocals up.
That's sick.
It was a lot of fun. And so the song is really badass. And so
that's a big collaboration because it's with you and Dan, but it's also the other dudes in the band added more stuff. And so that's a cool thing. See, I like that idea too. And this is part of the reason why I love just kind of living in this, I guess this time is for musicians, especially. It's like, hey, so we talked about it. And then one day he sent a file over, it's like, cool. And then you did your thing and sent it back. And then he sent it back. And so in a situation like that, or even just with your own stuff, Fogwatch and Beautiful People and everything else you're doing, who do you, do you like, what do you do it on? Is it like Pro Tools, Logic? What do you? So
the DAW that I use most is Reaper.
Reaper, yeah.
So I use Reaper, but I use a lot of different tools. I use a lot of stuff with I can't remember the actual maker of it, but that's where like Easy Drummer 3 it comes from. There's
Tune Tracks,
Tune Tracks, that's exactly right. Thank you. Tune Tracks. Then there's I use some different plugins to create different sound effects and noises. I purchased this whole massive file of Hollywood sounds.
Sick.
So I have like a file of like if you could think of it, if it's in a movie, I've got the sound for it. And
that's awesome.
You can plug it in there, right? And so I try to play around a lot with that stuff. But then I also do things like I don't have them in my office anymore, but if you go to Fogwatch, the song Siren Comes, there's this like sound that kind of sounds like a chain dragging.
Yeah.
And it's actually 2 Altoid 10s that I'm banging together. And then I recorded that sound and then I threw it into
2 Altoid 10s.
Altoid 10s, man. And then I was like, all right, now I'm gonna take it and destroy it, right? Like, and so
decimate it and whatever.
That's exactly it. Yep.
Oh man,
and
that's
then
so cool.
Oh, and the song "Thankful." There's
that's one of my favorites. Yeah,
I took a 45-pound weight, and then I took a rubber mallet, and I hit the weight with that. I recorded it, and then I put that in "Thankful." And so if you listen to it, the clanging sound is exactly what that is.
That's you hitting a weight with a mallet, dude.
Right. Yes.
And then you just did stuff to it. You after effected it.
Exactly right. Then I just like threw a bunch of different.
That's ridiculous. You're ridiculous, dude. I love that. You're so free with your. I see. That's cool, man. You should be like a sound designer for movies.
I know. Dude, I love it so much, and that's exactly what. Yeah, I would not be surprised if I don't eventually head in some sort of direction like that. I would love to do like. Oh, I was watching the other day, Terrifier, and was like, oh man, the sound effects are so cool in this. Like, and so then I found the guy who did it on Instagram. I follow him on Instagram now, right? And so like, I'm always kind of paying attention to
what he's doing.
Yeah, that's right.
You said earlier, you look at a lot of the other parts of the song less as instruments and more like sound effects. Yeah. And that statement, when you said that, for someone that knows your work, like something clicked when you said that. It was like, oh, that makes so much sense, dude. Like so much more sense.
Yeah, and that's why you'll notice things like for a lot of the guitar sounds on there. I don't use like standard guitar sounds, right? Like to me, I'm like, I end up doing like guitars and like really bursty, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so because as I'm playing around with them, like that's what sounds right for, you know, for the song. And so and I'm trying to remember the you asked me about the tools. I gotta find the tool that I use for most of my guitar sounds. I'm really bad with names today for some reason.
Well, you said Guitar Rig 3 earlier.
Yeah, it was let me find my plugins. And so yeah, I really want to find this guitar because I love the sound that it comes from. It is it's in Contact.
Oh, Contact Instruments, yeah. Yes. Those guys have been crushing it for ages, dude.
Dude, so many great sounds that I can generate from there. It's like
So Contact has always been like heavy hitters. Let me ask you this.
The really good the one that I use inside of Contact is called Damaged Guitars. I use that quite a bit, and because it's got a really like a really eerie sound that can be carried on the guitars, and so anyway, it's just a
lot of your sound. There's a lot of decimation in your sound and a lot of distortion in your sound, and that kind of adds. But that's kind of another theme, the aesthetic of the Gillsaw sound to an extent.
I would love a song where people were like, I don't know a single instrument that I just heard in that song. Like that's success, right?
You're welcome. Yeah, exactly.
It's not about the instrument, it's about the song, right? And so otherwise you get to like, well, I don't know. I mean, the chord progression on that is pretty simplistic. It's like, I don't care. It's not about
whatever. Yeah. Let me ask you this. I was going to ask you this. I almost lost it, but so you're doing a lot of you're performing pretty much everything yourself. You are performing everything.
I'm doing everything myself. That's correct.
So let me ask you this then. Who do you bring it somewhere? Do you mix your own stuff too?
I do.
Do you master your own stuff too?
I do.
I'm like, I gotta go. I just leave. So what do you use? Do you have like isotopes or something like that to master your stuff? And how do you do all of that so inside the box? Like, how do you take yourself outside to do like a master or a mix?
It's I don't know if I have a great answer for that because again, it's like song specific, right? Like I've tried using some tools like eMastered, and kind of playing around with some of that, but I end up being less than impressed with some of the outputs for it. There's been a couple of times where I'm like, I'll pull a song from there and I'll be like, that actually landed pretty well. I might actually keep that one. But most of the time I'm like, I can do better myself. And so I end up just doing it all myself inside of, again, Reapers where I live, right? And so I spend a lot of time so my approach to it is try to capture the right sound at the start. So I don't have to do much post production process to it.
Right. Oh, at the start, meaning when you're recording.
And I'm actually recording. That's right. Like,
Ooh, that's a good idea.
In the recording moment to get this sound where I want it to be as in a final product. So that's by design. Like so when I decided to take on this project, I had a very simple goal, and that was to create music that I enjoy. And that was it. Like, it was like, I am doing this for me. If other people enjoy it and like it, bonus.
Yeah.
But like, I want to create sounds and feelings that I enjoy. And so that's where I'm not out to, I don't want to say I'm not out to impress. Like, it's always nice when somebody's like, hey man, your shit like resonated with me. Like I captured what it was that you were pulling together for this, and I really enjoy it. And that's always feels good, right? But like, my goal is to just really make sure that I pull together a product that is something that I enjoy. And so with that, I grew up listening to, recently listened to a lot of progressive music where it's like, what's the genre? Well, shit, it's a little bit of everything, right? It's like jazz, and it's atmospheric, and it's metal, and it's like death metal, and then it's like, and it's pop, and it's just everything. And I always like that because I feel like it takes me on a journey, a sound journey, where I'm like, oh, now I see what this is, angry music, and all of a sudden it's like, now we have fucking flutes. Like, what are we doing here, right? Like, I'm on a journey. And so that's really where I try to take it. And the other thing, I want to touch on the lyrics real quick because like Fog Watch, there's I actually have a book that goes along with it that's just a free download on my website, and it tells the story of Fog Watch. And so there's actually like a narrative for the whole EP, and it's about society and like some of the decay in society, and how like it's really hard for a lot of people in the way that we have society set up. And so they end up falling into these traps, right? And of substance abuse or fill in the blank. And so that's where Risen comes from. Risen is those like evil, dark forces that pull somebody in a vulnerable state into, kind of a darkened state. And so so I try to tell a story. I try to have my lyric. I don't want to be like deep and philosophical in all of my songs, but there's deeper narratives to what it is that I'm pulling together. And it's the same with like the stuff that I have coming up. Is it also follows a narrative cycle, and it'll have an accompanying story as well. And so I want that deeper element to be there as well.
Yeah. And I noticed that I was going to actually ask you about the Fila Knox thing.
Yeah.
Like, because I dug into that a bit, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
But what part of what you're saying is part of that? You know what I mean? It's very kind of almost politically and societal based, you know what I mean? Struggles and things like that. And how, kind of like interweaving, not one consciousness, but, kind of like that, where it's like the mission statement's almost like we should be on the same page instead of on these separate pages. That's kind of what I took from it.
So I can, if you want to touch on that, I
do.
Let's chat about it. So, so this week, all of the Gillsaw social media channels have been taken over by Fila Knox, right?
Yeah.
And so you'll see that this is puppets, and they're puppets with like political propaganda. So you'll see the stuff that's being put out there. It's all like driven on political propaganda, where you see it like, here's a directive from Fila Knox, and you're like, I don't really understand it. It doesn't like make rational sense, but like it's coming from a point of authority. So there must be something here, right? There must be some reason to follow this directive. And then next week, the social media channels are going to be taken over by another group called Maine's Vox. And that's a group of ventriloquist dummies. And so,
the new track,
so that's coming out next week. Is they will take over, and so what you'll see is similar levels of propaganda, similar levels of kind of brainwashing, but also pointing at like Phil and Knox as being the bad. Right? That's all. It's the puppets.
Right.
And so what I'm trying to create is these environment where these two political factions are feeding the listener a bunch of nonsense, and they're pointing at each other as being the enemy and getting people riled up so then they can point at each other as well.
It's a big statement for the world. Yeah.
Instead of pivoting and pointing at the political parties and saying like, you're the ones, like, we're humans, man, we're bros. Like, it's you guys, you puppets, and you dummies that are up there that are manipulating us.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the EP that's coming out that will be announced at the end of the Maine's Vox takeover. Is called End Stage. And the whole thing is about, it is a critique of the political structure in the United States, especially. And it's really like, it's not a left versus right. It's an us versus the political class, the political parties, especially, because they just pit us against each other. And
yeah, they do.
And it it got, I'm at the point where it just was like, I got to do something. And even if something is just pull together a piece of art that kind of explains that, my point of view from it. And it's political, but it shouldn't be like, Republicans shouldn't listen to it and be like, oh, this is a critique of Republicans, or Democrats, this is a critique of Democrats. Right. It's not. It's a critique of the political parties and the political
and I got it. And your explanation of it definitely helped nail that in. I got a couple more for you. So I just out of curiosity, do you play live shows?
So not with Gillsaw.
Okay.
With other projects that I have, I do play live. So so what I want to do is get End Stage released, which will be releasing through the summer. I think the EP actually is going to release on August 1st. And on the other side of that, I will probably start spending some time thinking about how I'm going to pull this together in some sort of live show.
Right.
Because at that point I'll have a catalog that, you can actually play a show with. And so
that's not going to be easy though.
It's not going to be easy. No, like it's not, what I would not want is just, this isn't a band that's like, me and a guitarist and a bass and
that's why it's not going to be easy. Yeah.
It's gonna be easy. And so it's like, no, there's got to be a lot of elements to this to pull together. And so that's why I've kind of pushed it off, because I know that once I get into that process, it's going to be like all
overtaking. So we'll just touch on, the End Stage, the new EP it's going to be kind of released in segments. And then finally it'll come to fruition finally on August 1st. Will all the songs be released on the EP by that time, or are you going to hold off on 2 or 3?
Yeah, I'm releasing. There'll be 3 singles that are part of the EP. The first one is "Find a Fist," and that one comes out the 30th.
That was sick. That was a good one. Yeah.
And then "Illusionary Agency" comes out on June 20th.
Haven't heard that one yet.
"Hollow Oracle" comes out on July 11th. So,
and then the EP August 1st.
And then the EP August 1st. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So that's coming. So you're doing a waterfall release. I believe you did that with Fogwatch as well. By the time I got to it, it was the full EP. But anyway, so that's coming out in segments, since the full thing's going to be August 1st. So I think we'll talk about that after. So here's an important question that I wanted to ask you. I ask everybody this. If I were to, and you're gonna probably hate me for it, if I was gonna ask you who maybe your top 5 musical influences of all time would be, who would you honestly? I know it's tough. They don't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but who inspired you? Like what did you hear? Your mom played records when you were a kid. Did you what happened?
So through my life, I have really cycled through a lot of different genres, mostly on the harder side of music. And so really, like, the artist that fundamentally changed the way that I view music is Devin Townsend.
Ooh, I love Devin Townsend.
He's just phenomenal. His creativity and like he operates with no boundaries. And so I discovered him like 15 years ago, and that's where I did a fundamental mental shift on what music is. And so that took me down a whole rabbit hole of like
leave it to Devin Townsend.
Such a massive influence. You know, I mean, the music I do is different than Devin Townsend, but I just use his like no rules type of approach.
Yeah.
And so now growing up, like in high school, I was a huge Pantera fan. Love Pantera. Saw them multiple times back in the early 90s.
Me too.
And so like that's where I really got a lot of like my love for groove metal, right? Like that really just like deep groove where you just feel it deep in your soul.
Yeah.
And so yeah, big fan of them. Then
Same
when
here.
it comes to industrial, it was really like I started getting an industrial with, of course, Nine Inch Nails, right? When they were like Pretty Hate Machine is just such an amazing
perfect record. Pretty Hate Machine.
Amazing. And that album was created in 1989. And so you look at that and you're just like, what tools did Trent Reznor have at his disposal to pull this thing together? Like he was absolute cutting edge on some of the stuff.
He's a sound maker.
He is. And I just love that. I love like, I loved his music and the journey that he takes you on. So Trent Reznor is definitely in there. Lately, I've been getting into Danny Elfman.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
he's just so he pulled together that album. I think it was released like maybe 2 years ago. It was a double album of just songs he pulled together, and oh man, it's just so full of gems.
All of that makes sense for Gillsaw. Like usually I ask this question so that I can go back and listen again and pick up on influences, but they're all there. I don't need to go back and listen. I hear them all.
I think, and I'll put the last one in the mix, and it's mostly because you can tell this is because I'm a drummer, and that's Tool. You know, Danny Carey is hands down my favorite drummer. What he does on the kit, it doesn't make sense, and and so I love watching his videos, his drum cam videos, and just like he's just on a different.
So yeah, so this has been awesome, dude. Thank you so much for doing this, dude. This has been amazing.